a, a good deal of updates for you guys. And there are going to be some universal updates for the entire counselor education department. There are going to be some CMHC updates. There'll be some CES updates. But everyone will walk away with some knowledge tonight. So I'm going to ask, is Dr. Harris here yet?
Indeed, he is here.
There's too many pages, Dr. Harris. There's 6 pages. I couldn't scroll that fast. We have a PowerPoint. Dr. Harris is the first slide on the PowerPoint. I am going to give the floor to Dr. Harris to get us started. He's got something uplifting and encouraging to talk to us about. So Dr. Harris.
Yes. So I wanted to chat with you a little about 10 big questions. And it is an initiative. Speaking of university and community, this is an initiative that Dr. Foster and I started. Now it's probably about 6 months ago. We've been talking about it.
It's been a year. Hawaii.
Oh, has it been a year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a year ago, well, yeah, January, it will be a year. And so it is an initiative that we started as our program started to grow, and we looked at how might we develop community. Communiversity is what we call it. And so this is an initiative that we came up with, and we wanted to share it with everyone in our program. So it's a list of questions. Well, it's series of questions. And so one piece I want to really share with everyone is that when you look at the questions, you will notice that the next time you won't see the same questions. And that's because we created these lists of questions. Dr. Foster, we've noticed that so people won't get in tune with the same questions. And we created this. Number one, we found out that this is a great way to connect to our staff. It is also a great way to connect to our learners. Our deans, our university president is there. And as we go around, you will find out more about, don't be surprised if you get a call yourself, but it is, I think we just loaded one from Dr. Lip. So some of our new faculty, and Dr. Robinson has one. And so we have a couple more that will come out. We definitely want you guys to look forward to it. I think Colleen just put on our YouTube page where you're able to go if you've missed them. If you want to learn about our staff, about our program, great interviewing skills, that's a great way for you to watch. Questioning basic counseling skills. That's what I'm learning as I'm watching them, Dr. Foster. I'm recognizing how wonderful and gifted our staff, particularly how gifted they are as they interview, as they ask these questions, as they make connection, and as we look and find these commonalities, and as we find these, as we get to know each other better. That's what has been exciting to me as I have learned more about them. So I want to encourage you to go to our YouTube page and learn more about that on our 10 big questions.
And I am going to tag a couple of people to talk about their experience, because it's not just staff interviewing staff. We're very intentional in the approach. We have a GA that works on this project with us, Emily Hill, and we already have our next, it's like a game of professional tag. You never know when you're going to get tagged into the 10 big questions game. And so is Jane on the call tonight? Or Michael? Or Kevin?
Michael is here.
Michael Sutton, you were tagged, and you had the awesome responsibility of interviewing one of our deans after you were tagged. So from a student perspective, tell us how the experience of being involved in 10 big questions was for you.
It was a very, very good experience. I believe I was probably the first student, and it was done at the town hall. It was okay to be vulnerable in that moment, if you're trusting. The interview with Dr. McGrath was very good. I really enjoyed that. I didn't know her or anything about her prior to that. And I learned so much about her as we were getting prepared for the recording and even after the recording. So when it becomes your turn to be the person in the hot seat. And then next, the person to actually conduct the interview. I really think that you're going to enjoy it because you're going to learn so much about being there on the spot, being there in the moment, and just taking in the questions. And just, I think being in the moment, it really gives insight because the questions they're broad and small at the same time. The questions are going to bring it out of you if you allow it and just trust the process. So that was my experience with the 10 big questions.
Thank you, Michael. I'm actually going to
You're
tag
welcome.
Dr. Lip, who doesn't know he's going to be tagged tonight, to talk about his experience as both a new faculty member and a faculty member who got tagged in 10 big questions. Dr. Lip, what was your experience like? Did we lose Dr. Lip? I know I saw him.
If we lost him, Dr. Robinson was also. Jill?
Dr.
Oh, no, there he is. There he is.
I apologize, but the experience, the initiative was a fantastic one. I guess my experience was pleasantly surprised. I find doing such interviews to be somewhat unnerving, but my experience with Jane really formed a relationship, and one that I'll never forget, and that grew out of this organic experience.
And Dr. Robinson, your experience, if you don't mind sharing.
My experience with the 10 big questions was phenomenal. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a really great opportunity just to inquire more about the students that are at the Chicago School. Likewise, just having someone to ask me questions and explore my thinking and some of my background was really fun as well. I don't think students often get to learn as much about faculty and us about our students. So I found it really rewarding. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Excellent. So like I said, and like Dr. Harris said, you never know when you're going to be tagged. 2 students are going to be tagged very, very, very soon. And it's such an awesome opportunity, as Drs. Lip, Harris, and Robinson all said, to really kind of get to know the people in our communiversity, which is what we fondly call our counselor education family. Thank you, Dr. Harris. Thank you, Michael, Dr. Robinson, and Dr. Lip for sharing more about 10 big questions. And Colleen, there is 99 plus chats that I currently see. If you could add the YouTube channel one more time, just in case somebody didn't get it at the beginning of the chat, that would be fantastic. And we are going to move on to the rest of our agenda. So Colleen, if you could also advance the slide. And this is your part, Colleen. Did we lose Colleen?
No, sorry, trying to get off mute. All right, so course progression and standard schedules. And I'm trying to scroll through the chat and repost the YouTube. There we go. So we've been talking a lot about faculty advising, and I'm sure you've seen quite a few announcements about the importance of faculty advising and schedules. This is very important for many reasons. So students in the online campus do not self-register. Our SSC department, so our student support counselors, register online students. We really want to work with students, their faculty advisor, to confirm their course progression and their course schedule, so that then we can communicate that to our SSC team, so that they schedule you correctly. We do have a standard course progression for CMHC and CES, and that is the course progression that's found in the document in the online forum, in the online advising forum, both for CES and CMHC. Now we understand that that is a full-time course progression where you take at least 1 or 2 classes every term. And we also understand that some students, for a myriad of reasons, don't want to take courses at that pace. And so with prerequisites and the length of the program, time from starting and to time to completion, we really want to look at what your course sequences and your electives so that you are on track to finish the program, and that as you seek licensure, the electives support your state or multiple states or wherever you're pursuing to seek licensure. So let me show you the course progression example really quick. Let me stop sharing my screen and I'll share that document.
And everyone has an advisor. Everyone has an advisor in the online advising forum. If you click on your name, you will see who's your advisor. If you don't know that, you should be regularly meeting with your advisor to update your course schedule. You may go in there tonight and see something that says standard course schedule updated for student, and that's because you either haven't been in touch with your advisor or you haven't been in touch with your advisor to update your course schedule. And so I highly recommend that you click around in the advising forum and find this document as it exists for you. Colleen?
Yes, and so you can see here, this is an example for CMHC. CES looks very similar, obviously just doctoral level courses instead of master's. But over on the side here, there are prerequisites and notes so that you can see how your courses are sequential. You can see that you can't just take any course at any time. We do have a plan in place. And again, if you can't follow a standard sequence, we understand life happens. But again, we do want to follow the course sequence as closely as possible. And again, work in those electives that work best for you and your licensure pursuit. So working with myself, your faculty advisors, and then the SSC team, we work primarily with Autumn Sussness, but we definitely want to make sure you have your course progression and schedule uploaded in the advising forum so that we're all on the same page with what course is coming next.
So we're going to set an intention tonight, Colleen, for everybody viewing this presentation right now and everybody who's going to watch it from home later. We are going to set an intention that as a community, we will have 100% of our course schedules up by whether that's the standard schedule or whether that's you've met with your advisor to say, hey, this doesn't work. By the start of the spring 2 term or the spring 1 term, 2023, everyone's schedule will be populated. Even if you're brand new, everyone's schedule is going to be populated. So you and your advisor may get an email from Colleen to say, hey, tell me about electives, which Dr. Dixon will be talking about in just a little bit. But hey, tell me about the electives that this student might be looking at. And we've got some news that will have bearing on elective selection in just a little bit. And there will be time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation. So Colleen, thank you for talking about course schedules. And again, if you're CES, your course progression looks pretty similar. The names of the courses are just different. So be sure that you're going in and looking at that and making sure that your schedule works for your life and your life works for your schedule. Let's go ahead and advance the slide. So we're going to talk about key performance indicators. So in your courses, the module front page, every module, every course, every syllabus has course learning outcomes attached to it. We've taken those course learning outcomes and we've made them into our key performance indicators for the program. Now, some of you who've been around for a while might remember the DISCA. The key performance indicator assessment takes the place of the DISCA. Now, we're in this wonderful season of change at the university where our key performance indicators are going to be built into Canvas. So you might ask yourself, how am I to see my scores on my key performance indicator? Starting in the spring semester, we're going to roll them out based on course number and course sequence, and you're going to see those start to be built out in the program. It will be attached to a Canvas assignment. Now, in certain classes, those will have bearing on grades in certain classes. Now, we will roll that out at the next town hall. For every other class, every class in our program, whether you're in CES or CMHC, are going to have key performance indicators attached to them. We're going to show you the master of what the key performance indicator master list, the master assessment looks like. Now, in your course, you won't be evaluated on all of those. Your course may have 5 course learning outcomes. That means there are going to be 5 key performance indicators and dispositions that you're going to be evaluated on. Now, what are we going to do with that information? We're going to do a bunch of things with the key performance indicator information. We'll look at it at Assessment Summit to see if you're tracking on target. We use it in terms of program development and evaluation. For those of you who've taken an assessment class, you know what that is. To look at, is the program doing everything that we need it to do to best prepare you for where you're going to be? It's been very carefully crafted. It's taken us 2 years to vet this, to pilot it, to look at the mapping of it. And so the next phase is to socialize it, which we're doing today. And then after that, you will see it begin to populate. So Colleen, I'm going to ask you, I want to show both versions. I want to show the CMHC and the CES version. Let's start with CMHC.
Definitely. And Dr. Foster, while I bring that up, do you want to speak to the whys maybe for KCRAP and university reporting?
Yes. So that program evaluation piece, we are tasked every year with doing a very deep dive. Is Dr. Pickens on the call tonight? Can you see him, Colleen? Dr. Pickens and I are data people, and we sit with every number and we evaluate every number that we collect. And we do that for a variety of reasons. You can look on our website and you can see our program evaluation that occurs every year. We also have to report that data to the university. We keep a close watch on everything. I'll tell you, we are so data driven that I can tell you the assignment. I won't tell you what it is, but I could tell you the one assignment in the CMHC program and the CES program that has the most late assignments. It also has the lowest mean score. It also has the most number of students not attempting the assignment. So we look at all of that data to say, what is it about this assignment that is causing students pause, and what do we as a faculty need to do about that? So we look at it top down and bottom up, from the student to the program and from the program back to the student again. So clinical mental health counseling key performance indicator. Doc students, pay attention because the levels don't change. The things that change are your CLOs, your key performance indicators, and your benchmarks change. So entry, developing, progressing, mastery. Those are the 4, or did not observe or below expectation. Those are the categories. So if you are a student in CM 500, it's very unlikely that you will score a mastery. A mastery means you are ready to take on the field by yourself. We've listed emphasis or provision of evidence. You'll notice some Bloom's taxonomy words here. This is what you should be doing, and your assignments in the courses reflect this level of evidence to support what it is you're doing. Keep going. I want to get to the benchmarks really quick. Yeah, they're gonna be shared with the PowerPoint in the counselor education forum and in the advising forum. So, measurement scale indicative of a student in. If you are less than 21 hours complete in the program, you should reasonably expect a 1 or a 2 on your key performance indicator. That doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. That means you've done exactly what you were supposed to do in that particular course. Basic, that's 15 to 36 credit hours. This is primarily the middle-ish year of the program. It's the tail end of your first year into the middle year of your program. This is developing. If you are in, say, CM 571, depending on where you took it in your class, you can reasonably expect a 2, maybe a 3, depending on where you took it. Intermediate is 33 to 51 credit hours complete. This is the other half of your second year in the program. You should be progressing towards mastery. You should be able to do the things, that higher order Bloom's taxonomy skill. That's what we're looking for. And then mastery, that is somebody who is in field work, 51 or more credit hours completed. We're going to reasonably expect somebody in field work, depending on where they are, to be a 3 or a 4. And again, that's somebody who is ready to graduate and ready to take on the field. That's who gets a mastery. And so the first time you see this, I don't want you to panic when you get a 1 if you're in the first year of your program. That's reasonable. That's expected. You are on target. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. Now, CES students, we're going to show you yours in just a second, but I want to focus in on the professional dispositions for a second. In every class you're in the program, you are going to be evaluated on 5 dispositional areas: flexibility, impact to others, emotional regulation, personal responsibility, and ethical and legal consideration. Now, there will be some classes in both programs where you have an expanded dispositional rubric, and those are signature classes. Those are primarily skills-based classes. Those would be residencies. That would be, fieldwork classes, your 550 class, which is your diversity class. In those classes, you would see that expanded rubric. Again, that is in the pilot stage, and I will be bringing that back to you guys in the spring semester for you to take a look at it, and we'll talk about what classes that's mapped in. For every other class, you're going to be mapped on the categories, the overall arching category of the disposition. Now, the expectation remains the same: entry, developing, progressing, mastery. Now, go scroll, Colleen. Colleen and I have a different view of scroll up or down and what that means when we're looking at a document. So I just asked Colleen to scroll. So you will see, like, if you are in a class with CLO 1.1, the student will discuss the history and philosophy of counseling, the counseling profession, and the origins of the counseling specialty area. What class? Somebody tell me what class that might sound like we might evaluate that in.
Theories.
It may be theories, it may be 500, right? And so what if it's in theories or CM 500 or orientation class, what would be a reasonable expectation of a score? Cheyenne, I think you buzzed in first. Cheyenne, what would be, based on what I've said tonight, the reasonable expectation of a score for a professor who is scoring this?
I would probably say a 2 at the highest, just because they're just really just starting to get the foundation of the field. And even though you know some things about the history and the theories and all that, you don't know everything off the top of your head.
And it would probably be closer to a 1. It would take someone who has extensive knowledge in the field of mental health, who has, some foundation, some exceptional foundation. They would probably get a 2 for the reason you talked about, Cheyenne. You don't know everything yet, right? And so that would be the expectation. And so I really want to normalize what this is going to look like for you guys. Now, there are going to be other classes where you actually get to evaluate yourself, like a residency class, maybe the 550 class, where you actually get maybe the 571 class for those of you in the middle year. You may actually get access to the KPI, and part of your assignment might be that you evaluate yourself and then you give it to your professor. What this also field work, what this also allows us to do is, if you have some strengths that really we want to showcase, it gives us the language to be able to do that. And if you have deficits, it allows us the ability to help remediate that for you. And so this is meant to be developmental in nature. Again, in very few situations is it grade bearing. However, it is assessment bearing. And I want to talk about, let me show the CES one. Colleen, if you could move to the CES one real quick. Look at you, you're all on it. Again, all of the Bloom's taxonomy, all of this looks the same. Now, what I will say about the CES program is the CES program, the students in the CES program are learning brand new skills. It's not just because, as Dr. Rush Wilson says, the master's degree is the terminal degree to counsel. So when you're in a PhD program with us, you're learning things that you've never encountered before. And so the expectation remains the same: entry, developing, progressing, mastery. You'll notice the dispositions look the same. And if we go down and scroll down the side panel, I saw Tracy Hunt on the call. So Tracy Hunt, I'm going to ask you to come off mute. Students will identify research designs appropriate to quantitative and qualitative research questions. When might a student do that in their program, Tracy? Or any doc student?
Taking a qualitative or quantitative research methods course.
And what year do you do that?
The second year or third year doing your dissertation time, maybe a dissertation proposal.
So second or third year. So what would be a reasonable score, Tracy, then, that a doc student should expect on that particular domain?
Well, hopefully if it's your second year, you're looking at a 3 or 4. Well, I'm sorry, 2 or 3.
Two or three, right?
Yeah,
We're reasonably looking at a 2 or 3. And, you know, a dissertation student is going to be marked on that as well. And that is when we would expect them to have mastery, when they are ready to rock and roll and defend their dissertation. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate that. So again, these are going to be available for your review. They'll be in PDF form. I highly recommend you keep them. They're going to be a staple in the program. I highly recommend, even if you're not required to self-assess, that you're continually self-assessing yourself using these. Bring them to your advising session. Say, hey, Dr. Brown, I want to talk to you about my flexibility. I'm having some trouble leaning in. You know, I self-assess based on the rubric, and this is what I thought. So we want them to become a living, breathing part of the fabric of how we do things in our department. Colleen, you can take those down. So let's talk about how we do those in the department. One of the things that K-Prep requires us to do, and I alluded to this a little while ago, is that we're required to continuously assess where you guys are, and that we're doing our job and getting you well prepared for licensure, seeing clients independently, ethical and legal effectiveness. You can advance the slide, Colleen. And the way we do that is we do something called assessment summits. It sounds really fancy. And we'll actually be doing one. If you're going to residency this weekend, everyone at residency will be summited this weekend. And basically what we do is we sit down, we look at grades, we look at, you know, things like the KPI, we look at the instructional feedback survey that we do in the department. We look at all those things and we say, is this person where they need to be? And you get a variety of different letters, and it comes to your email, and it's also sent to your faculty advisor, saying a couple of different things. You're on target. We notice you are struggling in the middle year. These are some resources. Or this is an opportunity for remediation. And so the goal is that when we do assessment summits, it really is meant to be developmental, to meet you right where you are and to make sure that you're getting exactly what you need. So I don't want, if you're going to residency this weekend and you get a cryptic email that says assessment summit from Colleen this weekend, I don't want you to think it's a bad thing. It's one of those natural times in which we assess students. Now, the other place right off the bat that we do it, Doctors Colarusso and Dr. Dixon do it at field work for people leaving residency too. Why might they do that? They're looking at your fitness and your readiness to go into field work. And so there are natural points in the program in which we summit students to make sure that we're doing everything we can do and that we're not leaving you with unmet educational needs. Because what we do is important work, right? And so it's a measure of gatekeeping. Colleen, you can advance the slide. And I'm done talking for right now. I'm going to give it, oh no, I'm not. I have one more slide to talk about. We talked a little bit about this in the beginning, that there are prerequisites for things. Colleen showed those on the standard schedules. We have 4 CMHC programs at the Chicago School. We are the online campus. I chair a committee called the National CMHC Committee. All of the chairs from the CMHC departments come together and we talk about the state of CMHC at the Chicago School. Now, one of our initiatives last year was to make sure that if you look to the left and you look to the right, that we are ensuring that students at the Chicago School get a similar experience. So one of the things we looked at was making sure that our prerequisites put you all in a position to be successful. And so there are new prereqs coming out in the spring. This is what they look like. This will also be added to both the counselor education Canvas page and to your faculty advising. Now, here are the big changes. You'll notice 514 and 528 are on here a lot. 528 is your residency class. Should you put off your 528 class, you have the potential to put off your graduation date. CM 528 happens 3 times a year. It is in person. It's a requirement. We were required by KCREP to go back to our original decision letter. Our original decision letter said you have to do residency in person. And so that's what we are back to. There are no virtual options. And so if you put off taking your 528 class, you're putting off being able to take addictions and substance use, if that is an elective that you're interested in. You cannot take your group theories and processes class, which is your residency 2. You cannot take your couples and family counseling class, which is a required class. You cannot take trauma and crisis as an elective. You cannot take those classes. And the reason is all of those classes are predicated upon you having basic skills. Our basic skills class is our 528 class. It is a requirement. There is no wiggle room with that. The other one is 514, which is your diagnosis class. In order to be successful in both 530 and 571, you have to be able to take your 514 class. So lots of our prereqs dissipated. Other classes, this is the first time in our history we've had prerequisites to take some elective classes. And so even saying, you know what, Dr. Crowley, I think I'm going to opt out of going to residency in lieu of the trauma class. Dr. Crowley is going to tell you it can't be done. And so with your prereqs in hand, with that standard schedule in hand, be sure that you're making group advising meetings and individual advising meetings and advising hours with your advisors so that you can take a look at how this looks, how the prereqs look in your schedule moving forward. And now I'm done talking for a few minutes, Colleen. Dr. Dixon.
All right, let's breathe. That was a lot. Okay. So what we're going to hit right quickly is, so you've already heard from Colleen, you've heard from Dr. Foster. With regards to all these things that I'm about to talk to as well. The thing is just to kind of keep in mind from your first semester rolling in, and I know some of you aren't in the first semester, but even now, this includes CMHC and CES students. As I've already said, make sure you're seeing your advisor and know who that person is. You can find that person in the advising forum, make that connection early and often. Schedule an appointment, reach out with them via Canvas, make sure you're ready to do those things. Complete your course progressions that we've talked about, review those with your advisor regularly, review the residency terms, expectations for doubling up. As Colleen had said before, we want you to do the program as you see fit, and as what works best for you. So doubling up and other things that come up, make sure you're talking to your advisors about those things. Or if you like Dr. Foster said, if somebody's going to need to adjust something for residency, make sure you're talking to those advisors. Make sure it's an ongoing process. Make sure that you're going into the forum, talking to the advisors, keeping field work and residency dates going, and things like that. And then as far as electives are tricky. Colleen alluded to it a little bit earlier because some of your electives are dictated by the state you live in. So you may have to take certain courses based on that state, or you may have some freedom to take those. Make sure that you're meeting with your advisors, reaching out to any of us that you need to make sure that you are aware of when those are being offered, what they are, and how they relate to you. Make sure that you're reviewing when you need to take electives. You don't want them to delay your graduation. You don't want them to get into field work. But on top of all of this, I think the two most important things for us as faculty is in both programs, you're in a 3-year program, and we want you to get in and out within those 3 years. If that's what your goal is, that's what our goal usually is. And also to just keep you prepared throughout the process with your advising and electives and everything to prepare you for residency, for field work, and most important of all, for graduation. Again, make sure that you cover the electives that your state requires. And if you're a doc student, again, that's, staying with us, electives are a little different for you. We have different opportunities, and you will constantly be reaching out and letting you know when we fill those electives are coming up on the progression based on your cohorts. And that's pretty much the most important part of it all.
And what I want to say about this, I said I was done, but I'm not done. Colleen and Autumn cannot advance you into an elective. The only people who can advance you into an elective is your faculty advisor. And so you need to be talking to your faculty advisor. You just can't send Autumn an email and say, hey, I think I'm going to take advanced ethics this term. Can you put that down for me? Because what Autumn's going to say is, have you cleared this with your advisor? And it's not being punitive, and it's not wanting you to, but it's making sure that when you get out, you have met all of the requirements for your particular state. And your advisors are well-versed in your state. And if they don't know the answer, they're going to come to one of us and ask. And if we don't know the answer, we're going to call your board. And so there's lots of checks and balances in place to make sure that you guys are getting exactly what you need.
Absolutely.
Colleen, you can go ahead and advance the slide. Dr. Colarusso.
All right, so we are going to review fieldwork requirements, and these are both the same for CMHC and CES students. So one thing that I will say that we will talk more, Dr. Dixon and I are always here to help answer any questions moving into field work. We both teach the 604 class that kind of helps students move into field work. So we are a great resource. I also just put in the chat, and there'll be an announcement in the advising forum as well. We have been holding fieldwork Q&As every fall 2 term for the last 2 terms. So that's going to be coming up on December 5th in a couple weeks. So more questions around fieldwork will be answered in that session. But for as far as fieldwork requirements, things that we've been talking about already tonight, make sure that you review your course scheduler. So everyone has to do fieldwork. And I if you've had 604 with me, I say this, and you'll hear me say this all the time. You cannot leave this program and graduate without doing fieldwork. So never stop looking for a fieldwork site. Continue to look for fieldwork sites. You definitely need one. Use your course scheduler and understand when that date is that you will be actually starting field work, and plan for the term before to kind of get started with securing a site and figuring out what that site looks like. All students have to have a minimum of a 3.0 GPA and be in currently good standing with the university. Any students who are on student development plans have to be kind of wrapped those up and understand what their process is, along with their SDP mentor and the student development plan committee, to kind of move into fieldwork and residency. So if you know what that is and you are on one, those are great resources for your faculty mentor to understand, what does this mean for me moving into fieldwork? What does this mean for me moving into residency? University and site supervision are both priorities in fieldwork. University supervision for CMHC students is always on Monday evenings. And there are students that it needs to be a priority. So missing supervision, either university supervision and or site supervision, could always result in the failure of the course. So it's really important that you understand what your expectations are as far as moving into fieldwork, especially that last year, is that, every Monday night you will be in university supervision pretty much for a full year, essentially, with your university supervisor and your instructor.
And that's
go ahead, Dr. Foster.
non-negotiable. I was going to say, and supervision's non-negotiable.
Right. It becomes, you are a student first. And I know Dr. Foster says that a lot. And so university supervision is really important. Clients are important, just as important, but they are second. They can be moved. They can be moved around. Like you have to kind of show up at the time that you're expected to show up. That's really important. So kind of keep that in mind as you're moving and you're progressing in the program. In order to even start fieldwork, students must have an approved fieldwork site. And an approved fieldwork supervisor before the first day of fieldwork courses. And that is worked out in CE or CM 604. And Dr. Dixon and I will move through that process with you. It involves Tavera, it involves a lot of communications, it involves a lot of contracts, and we are here to support you in that process. But just know that it's lengthy and it needs to be done before you start fieldwork. All students need to have ACA professional liability insurance throughout the fieldwork experience. If it is expired at any time, you cannot count any of those hours that are accrued during the time that your ACA liability insurance is expired. Any student, so kind of covering it, any student that does not meet those requirements that I kind of just outlined at the beginning, those first kind of 6 notes can be withheld at any time from starting practicum or internship class, or 604. If you're not in good standing, you are referred to the Student Affairs Committee. Concerns about your professional dispositions or skills, development of those skills. They talked about the assessment summit, a lot of those things kind of go into where Dr. Dixon and I come in to kind of make sure that everyone's prepared for fieldwork. If you haven't completed your fieldwork process, if you've not successfully completed your prerequisites or courses that you're required to move into fieldwork, you need to have a credit in CE or CM 604. So if you have a no credit, you need to resolve that before you can move into fieldwork. And if you have any course that currently is in IP status as a grade, that is the other reason why you would not be able to move forward to fieldwork. The other thing to keep in mind is all of these things and every question that you probably have about fieldwork is in the fieldwork manual. Dr. Dixon and I have done a lot of work in the Canvas advising forum to kind of answer a lot of these questions. We have really revamped it. We're continuing to do it. And so we're going to go over a lot of those changes in the fieldwork Q&A as well, but just kind of check around and see what they look like. But those are the fieldwork requirements.
If you could advance the slide for Dr. TRW, Colleen.
Yeah, so it was a lot of information. Thank you, Dr. Foster. Make sure a couple of takeaways that you speak with your faculty advisor. I recommend you consider keeping a list of the questions that you have. Make sure to make a note of the date and time of the fieldwork Q&A Dr. Colarusso mentioned, which is Monday, December 5th from 6 to 8 Central, 7 to 9 Eastern. And with that, I ask if anyone has any additional questions.
Feel free to come off mute and ask. Or Colleen, if you want to moderate, if you see things in the chat you want to bring forward.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Hannah put in a great question. When do we need to pursue ACA liability insurance? How do we go about this? And I'm unsure how to approach getting this insurance.
Sure, I'll answer that for you. Really, because so when you go into 604, there'll be a requirement for you to start to get your ACA, to get your insurance, your liability insurance. And some things that students don't always understand is if this is going to be your career, that day that you go and get that insurance the first time in 604, this is something you're going to keep the rest of your life. Every one of us have it. It goes up oh so slightly when you're fully licensed and this and that, but there will never be another period that you will not have it. Even if you work for an agency, even if you work for a program, even if you work for a school, and they say, oh, we have insurance for you. No, you always have your own personal malpractice insurance, professional personal, for yourself. Get that in 604. It lasts about a year. So since you're taking 604, right around the end of internship 1, you need to be looking to renew it and make sure it's still renewed. But it's not fun, but you have to renew it every year, and just make sure that you're doing that. And yeah, there's and yeah, Colleen, yes, there's an easy way. You basically go to the ACA website if you're a CMHC student. You join ACA, 100 and some change now, and that includes your insurance. Now, one thing to know is if you stay as a member of the ACA, as a student, and then as a postgraduate pre-professional, a person who is working on their hours to get their license, and then often a new professional. So it'll be a little cheaper for you, only about $30 or $35 a year after that, until you become a professional. And I think for most of us, it runs about, mine's about 160, 180, Dr. Foster. I know you've talked about yours being a little different, but yeah, it's easy to do. We'll always show if you want to know.
And ACA is American Counseling Association. Yes.
Yes.
That would be that.
That is it.
Acronyms.
Thank you.
Other questions Dr. TRW can field for us?
I had a quick question about just the assessments and stuff for residency this weekend. So you said that we'll have that like assessment. Will all students get that email about, areas that we can improve on and things like that? Could you just review that quick?
Yes, absolutely. So there are in the course rubrics, and then there are assessments. And so I believe, Brian, that was you speaking, right? Excellent. So Brian, you will have the ability to self-assess, and then you will get feedback from your instructor. You will get all of that as a function of the rubrics in the class. So there's actually going to be 2 tiers of assessment that are happening. There will be the in the course stuff that you've already spoken to your instructor about. And if you haven't, you will Friday night. And then there will also be the assessment summit. So at the assessment summit, we'll take a look, Brian, at all of your coursework. Are you are you on task? Is your GPA where it needs to be? You know, has a faculty member reported a concern, and if the faculty member had a concern, you would know it already. You know, all of those kinds of things throughout the program. And so we'll take a look at all of that and we'll send an email that says, you know, we've taken a look at all of the assessment data that we have for you. This is where you fall, you know, at level, slightly below level, in need of remediation. And again, none of it's punitive. And before you leave residency, if you are in need of remediation, that will be set up for you. So, because either Dr. Pickens or Dr. Colarusso, or both, who are over our remediation program, will be at all residencies. And so, again, there's the 2 levels, Brian. I don't know if I answered your full question.
Yes, you did. Thank you. It was kind of easy to get mixed up of all the assessments. I really appreciate the answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. So in the class, we're going to think rubric, and for the assessment summit, we're going to think assessment.
I kind of put notes in the chat too. I hope
Excellent.
that helps.
I do have a question. I've been trying to submit my vaccination cards like the past 2 weeks, but the link is like not working, or it like loads and then it doesn't tell me that it was submitted or anything. So how would I go about that?
I'll take that one. Feel free to email them to Autumn Susness, and she can work with the person with the SSE department to get that uploaded for you. Erica said the same thing, and honestly might be, there is currently no policy that requires a vaccination card on file. So I can circle back and see if that link was taken down, because it's not required right now. But it doesn't hurt to have it on file if that changes in the future. So I would just email it directly to Autumn Susness, and thank you, Dr. Colarusso, and she can get that on file.
Thank you so much.
In the advising form, it still says vaccination card required.
Probably from the summer 2 residency, but if you go to the COVID policy page, that has the most current information.
And we'll get that fixed. We're going to take the information out and put the link to the COVID page so that students can just deal with the university policy.
Yep. Thanks,
So
Tanya.
it's not a requirement anymore. Sorry, I got the waiver for it. So I was gonna get that printed out to show them, or can I take a picture of it and show them that I have the waiver?
You can just have a picture and show the waiver.
Just a picture will work? Okay, that works.
Hey, I have one last question, and that is, I just renewed my insurance in August, set to graduate in December. Without my CE test results, will I be able to work and still maintain that insurance on site?
That is a question for ACA.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, no, well, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and thank you for your time and attention tonight.
And we each took a different part. You can certainly send all your questions to Dr. TRW, and she can send them to the person that they need to be fielded to, or you can send the question directly to the person. I challenge, though, to send the question directly to your advisor, and give your advisor a chance to really strengthen the relationship. And don't forget to go binge watch 10 Big Questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.